Hello and welcome to my first impressions review thing on the new update for Lightyear Frontier. I keep wanting to call it Hyper Light Drifter for some reason. Um, this is the first kind of big update we've gotten for this game in the year since it's been out in early access. There was a couple updates, added like farming, very basic shit. This is the first major update, and it's kind of interesting because like it's being framed, like the marketing spin is that they gave us a map that's almost 3 times as large as the original, which is obviously meant to convey the idea of expansion and scoping up. But I have a feeling that this is a consequence of scoping down by Embracer Group. This is an Embracer Group game, and they've been doing all kinds of layoffs in the last year. And I have it's total schizo, but I have a theory based on the way the game presented itself that we were originally going to get a bunch of different like island areas to explore, and I feel like they've taken that idea and just condensed it down into one big area, which while it's technically larger than what we had, I think it's probably smaller than what we would have gotten. I've heard they've completely taken out the island biome entirely. I haven't really gotten that far in it yet, so I don't know, but I've heard that that's gone. Like kind of like the tropical island, desert island biome that was in the game, which was cool, and it was a nice little variety. Apparently that's gone entirely. I don't know that for sure. So I think this whole thing is they probably lost a lot of resources, devs, and they're just trying to figure out a way to make the game work. And to be fair, what we have now may be better than what we had before on balance. I don't know yet. Like I said, I'm early on. It's kind of hard to tell. But I will say that my first impressions of this update were like almost pretty much entirely negative. I'm going to be honest. It definitely grew on me. I'm enjoying I streamed it for 6 freaking hours. And in that time, I definitely started to enjoy myself more. Once I kind of got over that initial learning curve and the hump, the survival hump in the beginning, and I was able to just play the game and not have to worry about constantly repairing my mech, I started to enjoy it more. But that period of negativity lasted at least a couple hours, and it was really bad. And it was just like almost universally negative. One thing I'll say, they removed Piper. Totally support that decision. Piper was the most annoying thing ever. She made Navi look like nothing. Every time you'd wake up in the morning, she'd say some inane bullshit you've heard 1,000 times. Half the time you would literally like do anything in the game, like literally anything. She would say something. It was just super annoying. And they completely yeeted her out of the game. And I support it. This whole thing has come with a redirection of story. It seems like it's going to be less story driven now, which is fine by me. This kind of game isn't really a story driven game. It does make me wonder if we're getting way less like bespoke, handcrafted content and a lot more like generated or additional systems that don't really, you know what I mean? I don't know. I can tell you that the second I loaded into the game, I was struck, and I knew that this was going to happen. Like I was preparing myself for this before it happened, and it happened. Immediately I was like, this map looks like shit. This map feels so soulless compared to the original, and I don't think I'm alone in that, because I went on the Steam forums and another guy posted a thread saying this exact. I posted a thread, and like 30 minutes later, another guy posted the exact same thread, soulless. Like we use the same words, and I think that's down to the fact that they try to, it's down to the fact probably that they didn't have enough time and money and resources to make the new map at the level of quality that the old map had. That's probably honestly why. They probably threw this map together in like 6 months for this update. That's what it feels like. I mean, there are like things in the map, like these big like ruin artifact object things that you can just walk right through. There's no clipping on them at all, and I mean that just feels like unfinished. It just feels rushed. But a big part of the update is the expansion of the map and expansion of space, so that you have more room to farm. Like they're really pushing that. Like the main menu video, or whatever you want to call it, background image, is of a mech standing in a giant open wheat field, right? Which you really couldn't really do in the old version. And even if you did find a spot where you could put a big field down, you really didn't have much of a reason to, because you didn't really need crops that much. I mean, you could sink a little bit of money into buying like cosmetics and decorations. You'd eventually run out of those, and there just really wasn't really a need to have particularly large fields. Fields were always little, like for me anyway, they were relatively small things that I would just plant in every day and regularly harvest, have a couple of spots set up around the map, and I'd have plenty of what I need from that, and I never needed to make a big field. And I think people complained about that, and they've been really pushing that kind of element of this update, is the big space to build and farm in. And as a result of that transition, you have lots of wide open, flat space, which is very different from the original map, which had a lot of like hills and ups and downs and valleys and pathways cutting through places. Like it was very busy, like topographically in the old map. In this new map, it's lots of just big flat spaces, oftentimes with like barely any like elevation changes at all, like almost imperceptible or completely non-existent. So it just literally looks like a flat plane on like a Gary's Mod map or something, right, with grass on it and some trees plopped down, and it just looks like shit, just straight up. It doesn't all look like shit. There's lots of big forests now. There's lots more tree density in certain places. I like that. Some of the sites and vistas are good, but on balance, the map looks like shit. I'm actually there's an example, and this is a result. I'll get back to that in a sec. This is a result of moving to this more open world feel. I mean, it was open world before, but like it's much more grand in scale now. And part of the reason it looks like shit might be down to like optimization, because it's bigger and there's more stuff. Some of the stuff needs to look worse, but I'm gonna put in a clip here from my stream today where I had a moment that like perfectly highlighted the point I'm making right now. And I think it will do a better job of explaining what I'm saying than anything I can right now. So here's the clip.
Like, this just looks bad. Like, for any other game, I wouldn't care. It'd be like, it looks fine. But, like, the original game, the map looked really good. It was one of its strongest elements. So, it's noticeable. Like that is so clearly just, like, an existing asset that they had, which is nice, right? It's a well-made asset. It looks good. And then it's just put on top of this terrible procedurally generated, like, land shit. And it's like, this is the original game. This is the new game. Right? And like that permeates the map, basically. This feeling of like, ugh, just like permeates the map. And this feeling of like, oh yeah, that was like the entire map in the old version, right? I'm just going to clip that and put it in my review.
Okay, so I think that basically sums it up. The original game was on a much smaller scale. As a result, it had much finer tuning. And there were lots more bespoke, handcrafted assets and topography on the map. And the new map very much feels like a procedurally generated space, right? As opposed to a handcrafted location, which the original felt like. And again, some of that might be the fact that it's early access. Some of those mountains that look like absolutely dog shit look like the Pokemon game that got so much heat for the bad textures on the mountains. It reminds me of that. Some of that might get polished up in development. They might add more of those bespoke embellishments to the cliff faces and stuff. But some of that might be optimization. Like, it's probably hard when you've got a giant map and all these mountains and stuff to plaster them with these polygonal models, you know? Can you hear my dog barking? It's probably harder to do that in terms of resources and processing power. So I don't know. It might just look like shit forever. I don't know. But again, I can definitely tell you, smaller areas, like what I think the original vision was, smaller little islands that are connected that you can access via water, that were more handcrafted, would have been like just so much better than this shit. This big, open, generated stuff. So, yes, I think in the original, what I think was the original vision of smaller, more bespoke, handcrafted areas is just a lot better than this soulless, big, open slop. You know, that's what it feels like, honestly. I mean, you look at some of these cliffs, I mean, these mountains, they look literally terrible. And it's not just like the textures on the mountains, it's the lack of, again, those models that add embellishment to the visual. They lack that entirely. And then, you know, on the ground, when you're walking around, it just feels like there's like less, you know, bushes and rocks and little decorative things that make the scene look more interesting, you know. And it feels like, you know, whoever is in charge of making this map is not the same people or person who was in charge of the last map, and they're just not as good. They're just like haphazardly just kind of plopping stuff down, whereas the last guy was like an artist. He really sculpted a world that was beautiful visually, and while the game still looks good, it's still cozy, it's still comfy, it's got the same lighting engine, it's all that, it's the same game, the map itself is just soulless. It's just soulless. And I really think that's like one of the biggest things. Like it might not be one of the most pressing issues right now that needs to be fixed, but it's one of those things that if it's not fixed over the long term, it's really going to hurt the game's success. Honestly, those little things add up. Again, it might not be super important. It might be one of the lesser important things, but I think it's important personally. As someone who came from the original, and maybe it's just a lot of this might be someone who came from the original and my autism is just not okay with change. Like, you know, it might be some of that, but I think it's incontrovertible that the new map is relatively soulless compared to the old one. I don't think anyone could argue that. Just watch any footage of the old map and just look at any footage of the new map. You can tell at a glance that the new map is worse. And that's a big deal. I mean, that's the, you know, it's the map that you're playing on. It's kind of, you know, it's a huge part of the game. So, that was the first thing that immediately jumped out at me. I've been kind of negative. Maybe I should be a little positive. I don't know. I feel like I should just kind of like flow with how I experienced it, really. So that first experience, that early experience, was so negative. And I'll just go through it, and then I'll get to the good stuff later. So again, the first thing that jumped out at me was the world in the map and how bad it looked. And then the next thing that cropped up was the survival stuff. This was a big thing that a lot of people were clamoring for last year, and myself included. Like, I initially, when I first started playing, I was like, this game would be better with survival elements. Like, there's no reason to sleep. Like, you have beds, but there's really, you gotta get some buffs from beds, but it's like the beds feel kind of tacked on. They feel like vestigial of a survival game that used to exist, right? So a lot of people were asking for survival elements, combat, stuff like that. Because in the original, there was literally, you couldn't, I mean, the only way you could possibly, like, quote unquote, die, which would just mean you respawn 10 feet next to where you died, was if you went into too deep of water. Other than that, there was zero threat at all. And now, they've added all kinds of shit. The first thing I encountered were the enemies. I call them the flying testicles. They're these giant balls that fly around with flower petals. And they essentially float into you and then explode. And they do a shitload of damage. And I'm not sure, because, like, initially when I was trying, you can push them away with your saw thing on your mech. And initially when I tried doing that, every time I'd hit them with my saw, I would take damage. So I don't know if maybe I was taking damage from their spikes or something, because another time I did it, I didn't take damage. So maybe it was the spikes I was getting hit by or something. They have spikes on them. I don't know. But they explode. They float into you. When you find them, there's like 50 of them in an area, and they do a shitload of damage. You now have durability on every single individual part of your mech, and depending on which part gets broken, it affects your performance. Like, the more your legs get damaged, the less you're stable you are in moving. And like all that stuff's cool. Like that stuff is cool. And it grew on me the more I played with it. But it's just, in my opinion, super overtuned in the beginning. Because, you know, you bump into like one of these testicles, there's like 6 of them like right around a corner you didn't see, and then they all swarm on you, they all explode, and then you're dead. And then when you're dead now if your mech, if all your mech parts die, I don't think you can do anything. I think if like both of your legs are dead, I mean, you might be able to still move. I should know this information right now, but I don't. I'm not sure if you're completely disabled when your mech is fully damaged, or if you can still move around. I don't know, but either way, you're kind of crippled. You know, you're kind of crippled, and you got to scrounge around looking for copper to build these repair kits, and they only repair like, I think they repair 25%. So you need like 4 repair kits to fully repair an individual piece, 2 repair kits to fully repair a tool. Your tools break too, like your pickaxe, like you might be fine, but then your saw axe thing breaks, and now you can't like harvest anything unless you want to get out of your mech and use your hand pickaxe, and it takes forever. So it's like all this stuff is fine in theory, and again, I'm more okay with it now that I've played for longer, but in the beginning it was just super frustrating. You would get hit by one of these testicles, you get hit by 2 more that were right near you, you die, you have to go running around looking for repair kits and shit, and it's just a complete pain in the dick, my dude. It is horrible. And they're everywhere. Again, when you go to a place with these things, there's like 60 of them in like a 50-foot radius. It's crazy. And then in addition to these enemies, they've added tornadoes, which are so bad, so stupid, so poorly implemented. First of all, I find them just kind of lame. They're just random tornadoes that fly around. I don't know, are tornadoes that... I don't know, tornadoes, like, that might be cool if they're fucking insane twisters that come around very, very rarely. You know, maybe that's cool, but just like random tornadoes that are like a thunderstorm in terms of frequency, I just don't give a shit. They're just not interesting, they're lame. And then the way they're implemented is like they start sucking you into their radius from like, 100 feet away. Oh, and they're kind of quiet. I got snuck up on by like 2 of them where I didn't even see they were there. And then all of a sudden I'm starting to get pulled in. And once you start getting pulled in, you're fucked. You can't do anything at that point. You can't get away. Maybe with some like upgrades to your mech, you can get away from a twister, but you can't in the very beginning when all of this stuff is fresh and you don't know what's going on. And you just get sucked into it. No matter how hard you run in the opposite direction, you're not getting away. You're getting sucked in. And then what's going to happen is your mech is going to get basically completely destroyed. Unless you get lucky with RNG and it flings you far away in the opposite direction of its travel path. That thing is going to continuously just get sucked up into that thing until it's completely destroyed. And then you're going to hop out of your mech. I believe it automatically kicks you out. I don't remember. You're going to get out of your mech and then you're going to die. And then, depending on where your mech blew up, you're going to spawn maybe 10 miles away. And now your inventory is 10 miles away. I believe your mech will be with you, but it will be completely broken and out of fuel. So then you either have to quickly make some fuel, which is not that hard to be fair, or you have to run all the way back to your inventory and then back to your mech. It's just way too aggressive and way too dangerous and damaging early on. And the fucking inventories. When you drop your inventory, you drop like a little backpack or something, right? Apparently, for some fucking reason, the inventory in this game, the inventory item, is a physics object like everything else. So what happens is, if you die in a tornado, your inventory can get thrown far afield from where it originally would have dropped. And what's happened to me and other people I've read on the Steam forums is that their inventory gets thrown up onto a fucking cliff face that they literally can't get to. And at that point, I would argue the save file is kind of bricked. Not really, but for me, I wouldn't continue playing because at that point, and I don't think there's any way to turn this off, I could be wrong, but at that point, you're going to have an inventory icon on your map the entire time that you're never going to be able to get rid of. And and even when you look away from it, it's like a giant flashing yellow icon in your peripheral vision, and it doesn't go away. So I was lucky that I was able to actually get above where it dropped, and I was able to fall down the cliff and pick it up real quick. But I might not have been that lucky. I might not be that lucky in the future. Other people have not been that lucky. So why the hell your inventory is a physics object with like gravity and all that weight and can be affected by forces? That's stupid. It should be a static object that just drops where you die. And in fact, I don't know if this is in the game, there should be a method to unstuck your inventory, like you can unstuck your player. That might be in the game, I don't know, but it needs it if it isn't, because this is ridiculous. So the survival stuff, again, it grew on me. Now I have plenty of repair kits. It's not a big deal to repair if I have to. The enemy testicle things do add like a kind of an element of danger to the world that make it a little bit more engaging. It's also kind of not the reason Lightyear Frontier exists. Like, Lightyear Frontier is not a game that's supposed to be mentally taxing, right? And this could be the complete restructure of the game, where they're trying to move away from that laid-back game and move to a more kind of traditional game. And again, as someone who played the original, it's like, okay, I mostly play real games that are actually difficult and stuff like that, but I liked what Lightyear Frontier, I keep wanting to say Hyper Light Drifter, I liked what Lightyear Frontier was, which was not even really a game, to be honest. There was like no fail state, there were no combat. I mean, you know, it was barely a game. It was just a cozy little farm thing with a mech, you know, and I liked it for that. And it's still largely that, for sure, but it's a little bit less that. And I'm curious to see how far away from that original vision it's going to go, and whether or not it'll be good. Because, I mean, again, like, we've got plenty of those games. You know, there's room in the world for a cozy, laid-back half a game, you know? Just give me lots of decorations and stuff to build and stuff, you know? Reasons to harvest crops and stuff. So, that was my first impression. I spent like 2 hours fighting with the durability system, fighting with the tornadoes, fighting with the testicles, and it just wasn't fun. It was just straight up not fun. And I was like, this update fucking sucks. They ruined the game. And then I kept playing it. And again, that initial friction of the survival stuff started to subside. I started to have repair kits. I started to know how things worked. It started getting a little easier. It was less annoying. I was building stuff. I'm planting crops. I'm making deliveries. Okay, I'm playing the game now. But I had to get through like a 2-hour gauntlet before I could start playing the game. So I think that definitely needs work. I don't know. I mean, it's crazy. Like, you'll craft a mod for your mech, and it's 5% damage reduction for one part. And it takes up power consumption. So, like, you can't even use it. Like, it's like you have to use it like a resource just to equip it, right? And it's like it's only 5% damage reduction. 5%, that's nothing on one part. Like, what is this? What is this fucking... I mean, Dark Souls isn't even this retarded. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's trying to be like hardcore. And honestly, I kind of like that idea, but it's too much for this game. It's just too much. It's too much. So they definitely need to tone that down. They need to tone that down. They need to work on the world. They need to do a pass on the whole world. And they're not going to do this, but they need to do this and make it look better. Because right now it does not look good. It does not. What are some of the things they did well? I mean, they did do a lot of things well here. I don't want to just be a negative Nancy. First and foremost, the house building is good. I'm not super into it. I'm on like tier 3 of the delivery progression, so I'm not like super into the game. I'm like, although based on the number of progression tiers, that's like almost 25% of the way through. But the housing so far, it seems cool. You got lots of control, tons of pieces right off the bat, lots of little fine control over things, which is good. That was one of the original game's strengths, was its ability to place all these little decorations wherever you wanted, and you could place decorations on top of other decorations and stuff, and you had a lot of control over that to make it feel like homey and stuff. So they leaned into that with the house building. Uncontestable W. Again, could it be done better? Probably. I'm not far enough in to say anything specific, but It's fine. It's good. It's needed. It's good. It's not even mediocre. It's good. It's a good house building system. So the W on that, small, but watering crops is a lot easier now. The radius of your hose is a little bit bigger, so now you can hit like 2 squares at once with one spray if you position it correctly. So that just makes quickly watering fields a lot easier, and it's not one of those things where like, oh, they're casualizing the game. The game is the most casual game you could possibly play already anyway, and it doesn't do anything. It doesn't like it's streamlining in the best way, because you're not losing anything meaningful from it, and it just makes the game more fun to play. Some things they did with streamlining I don't like. For example, the mech menu, the mech customization menu. In some ways, it's way better than the original. The original, all your cosmetics it was laughable, dude. Like, you had one long list of all your cosmetic pieces, and they are in the order that you acquired each individual piece. And you acquire pieces separately, and you might acquire one piece and the pieces are like random in the merchant's inventory. So you could acquire like the arms for one set, and then like 10, 12 pieces later, you acquire the legs for that set. So now if you want to put one set on, you got to just individually search for needles, and it was unbelievably terrible. It's way better now. You search for individual parts, and I think they're organized in alphabetical. It's still not like perfect, but it's way better. But then also it's a lot more complicated because there's a lot more you can do with your mech with the mod system and the different parts and stuff. So it's a little bit harder to like get around it because there's more stuff, and also some of like the UI UX stuff is bad. Like to get to the previous menu, you have to press the escape key instead of like right mouse button, which most games do, and it's like that's just shit. What I end up doing is just like cycling between menus with the mouse. It's faster than hitting the escape key. It's just let us right click out of the menu, you know. But on balance, despite the problems, the mech customization menu is way better. One thing I absolutely cannot understand, and it's actually probably the single most important thing. Listen up, developers, if you're listening. The single most important thing that you could change, the single worst decision you made in this update, the single most abominable change you made to this game is that they removed the crop vacuum. You can no longer harvest crops by sucking them up with your vacuum. You have to manually do it with your pickaxe or your mech axe thing, which is admittedly kind of fun to swing that thing around and get crops. Or use probably drones, I would assume, in the future. Or there's like a tractor mode you can enter your mech in and harvest that way. There is zero reason why you needed to remove the crop vacuum. If you thought it was too overpowered for the early game, because you're trying to go for this Dark Souls bullshit, simply make it a mod in somewhere in the middle tier of progression. The crop vacuum was probably, not even, definitely the single most fun part of Lightyear. I almost did it. Of Lightyear Frontier. It felt like Super Mario Sunshine. You're spraying things with your hose. It's kind of, but it's the opposite. You're sucking things in. It was fun. You would look at a field full of crops, you'd aim your vacuum, you'd suck them all in, they'd fly into your mech, you'd hear each individual crop like unsprouted, like pop out of the ground and fly into your vacuum. It was fun. That's what video games are for. They're for fun. And that was the single most fun mechanic in your game, was the crop vacuum. And you removed it for no reason. Because there's no reason why it needs to be gone. If the only reason I can think of is it was too overpowered for the very early game in this new version of the game they're making, fine. That's what mods are for, dude. You literally have a system in the game that solves this problem, so I do not understand why you removed it from the game. Absolute 17-head move on your part, all right? Like the dumbest shit I've ever seen. Whoever made that decision should be fired. It's ridiculous. You don't get, like, whoever made that decision is dangerous because they don't get video games. Because again, there's no design reason why it should have been done, because you can easily gate it behind a mod. And all you did was remove a fun part of your game for no reason. For no reason. So, if you take anything away from this review, first impressions, whatever, bring back the crop vacuum. Come the fuck on, dudes. Seriously. Okay, some little note thoughts here. Making a bed in the beginning is just way too difficult. Like, in the original game, you just made a tent, and that was your bed. And you made it the second you got into the game, and you had a bed, and you were good. In this one, you have to build a house first. You have to make a roof. It's just a pain in the ass. I would guarantee probably like 80% of the players don't even make the bed within the first like 2 or 3 days. Because it's just like, I want to do other stuff. I don't want to build a house right this second. I'm figuring stuff out, you know? So I don't like that. You should just be able to plop a tent down like you used to, and then you can move to houses. I know they're trying to like move you to the house building thing because it's their new shiny thing, but it just doesn't feel good as a player. Also, I think carrying capacity is a little too strict. I don't know if it's any more restrictive than it was in the last game, the last version, but in this version at least, it just feels like I wish I had a little bit more carrying capacity. It doesn't have to be a ton. I know they're going for the harder thing. I get that. I appreciate that. But I don't know. I just feel like maybe like 10% more carrying capacity in the beginning would be nice. It just feels too restrictive. Like I'm on carrying. I have 1 carrying upgrade right now, and it still doesn't really feel like enough. That could be me though. I don't know. It's a little wrinkle there. So anyway, I think that's it. I can't think of anything right now. I'm trying to rack my brain of any other ideas I had. Oh, another little minor thing. In the forests, there are these fluorescent plants, and they were in the last version as well. But in this version, there are way too many of them. If you like, when you have your flashlight on, which is, to be fair, going to be pretty much every time you're outside at night anyway, it's not really that noticeable. But if you turn your flashlight off at night in these forests, maybe I'll put some footage up to show what I'm talking about. It just looks bad. All these, literally like 90% of the foliage around you is just glowing, and it's not even glowing. It's not like it's even producing any ambient light. It's just fluorescent plants, and it just looks bad. It just doesn't look good. If maybe like the whole biome was fluorescent plants and the trees were fluorescent and like everything was fluorescent, maybe it would look okay. But like, it's just like 80% of the plants are fluorescent, but the trees aren't, and it looks weird. It just doesn't look good. Again, like so many things, it looks like automated. It looks like you used like AI or something to generate the map, and not like actual people went in and populated a map and sculpted a map. That's what it feels like. And that is other than the crop vacuum, that is probably my biggest problem with this whole update, is the soullessness of the map. The survival stuff is a little overtuned, I think. That's a pretty easy fix. It's not a super pervasive problem. I think you get over it pretty quick. It has added benefits that I think are worth it. But the soulless map is just, again, I would have preferred smaller bespoke areas, multiple of them, than a giant soulless slop mess, And, and really, if you never played the pre-update Lightyear Frontier, you can play it on the Legacy Brave. You gotta try it out. I'm telling you, that map was like excellent. It was an excellently designed map. World, play space, and the new one just is not. The new one just feels generic. It feels like any other game. Like in the original Lightyear Frontier, the world space was one of its strongest features, and it was one of the things that jumped out at me immediately, was the high quality of the visuals that I was seeing in the world, how detailed it was, and then in this one, it just feels like any other game. It just, you know what I mean? It feels like kind of any other open world shitty game. So yeah, bring back the crop vacuum, spice up the world, make it less soulless and AI feeling, please. Maybe tune down the survival stuff, at least in the beginning. I don't know, reduce the damage that you take from these testicles. Turn off tornadoes entirely for like the first... Why am I getting a tornado like for the first 3 days in my file? Just turn them off for like the first 20 days. And then have a warning, a tornado warning, Something like that. Like, why are there like 5 tornadoes flying around when I just started the game? Right? I don't know how you could fix them other than just deleting them. Make them do less damage or something. But I think it would just go a long way to just delay when they appear. That would help a lot. I don't even know if I I don't even know if I mentioned the delivery and the new progression system. Maybe I did, maybe I didn't. If I didn't, I'll just talk about it now. That was something that the game desperately needed, because it really, like, other than working your way through the crafting recipes, there was really nothing to do. There was a little bit of a story, a little bit of like exploration stuff, but you ran out of stuff to do like wicked fast, and there was really no point to growing and harvesting crops, in large numbers. There really just was no reason to. And when you're like a farm game, it's kind of a big deal. Again, I don't know if I said it in this or in like a stream, but like the opening main menu background visual is of a mech standing in a giant wheat field, right? Which the original, it wasn't. It was like the mech was overlooking a tiny little valley with a little farmhouse and a couple of small fields. Now it's a mech in the middle of a giant wheat field. And it's like, I've seen a lot of screenshots and stuff of these giant fields and stuff, and it's in their marketing and stuff. But in the original, like, you really just couldn't ever do big fields. And even, because there really wasn't a lot of like flat space, there wasn't a ton of it. There were some areas, but not a lot. But even if you did, there was really no purpose for all the upkeep. There was no auto watering. We have drones now to do that. You would have to water everything, and back then you had the bad watering system, and you'd have to manually harvest. Although with the crop vacuum, it was not that hard, and it was pretty fun. And by the way, the argument that they got rid of the crop vacuum because of optimization issues, that's bullshit. They fixed that in the game. They fixed the optimization problem. I'm pretty sure they just limited how many individual crops it can suck up per second. Just keep that. It doesn't matter how big. It doesn't matter if you have a field that's like 500 times as big. If you can just suck up the same number per second, that should solve the optimization problem, right? So because there wasn't a lot to spend money on, there were mech parts and there were decorations. It still didn't add up to a lot in terms of like how many crops you needed per day to really progress at a nice rate. So I got by just fine with 4 or 5 of those small little like raised plots, and I'd just cycle those through those every day, and I'd have plenty. So now a big part of the update is they want these big fields and you're farming tons of crops, and to that end they have this new progression system where you have to deliver increasingly large amounts of crops and resources to planets to unlock more and more craftables, industry buildings, stuff like that, decorations, all that, mods. It's just the progression system. It's the new progression system. You no longer just progress by like acquiring new ingredients. You do, but you in addition progress through this delivery system where you have to harvest, again, increasingly large amounts of crops and send them to these planets. And I'm not super far into it. I'm like 3 out of 12 tiers or something. But it definitely was something the game sorely needed. It needed that money sink, or in this case, crop sink. Back then, crops were just money, right? You would just sell them for money, and then you use the money. So you needed a crop sink. You needed some reason in the game to grow large amounts of crops, because it's a farm game, right? And you want to do that. And this progression system seems to be solving that problem. Again, I'm not super far in it, so I don't know how much it solves that problem, but I think it's definitely better than the old system, which was nothing. So that's a win. So the house building's a win, the new progression system's a win, the water QOL is a win, the mech customization is a win. I like being able to change the colors a little bit more freely, I think. You don't need paint for your mech, which is nice. That's good. They kept the paint gun, which is nice, because that was a cool part of the game, but they got rid of it for the mech, which I think is okay, because it lets you play around with colors more, and it's good. But then the negatives, again, are just the survival is overtuned early on. I think it's generally a good idea. I'm appreciating it the more I play with it, but it was absolute ass for that first 2 hours. So that needs to be toned down. The world needs to be sold up. Like, that is like, Again, the crop vacuum is the most important thing. Right under that, like 1% beneath that, you got to make the world look better. You got to make it look like the old world. You got to make it look like it was handcrafted by an artist who was good at what they did, not slapped together by an intern, in Unreal Engine in an afternoon, which is what it feels like. I mean, I'm no clipping through things. I'm seeing seams in the world. I've seen multiple seams in the world, which are so obvious and large that I see them from a distance and think that it's like an invisible wall barrier, like telling me you can't go past this point. But no, it's a seam in the geometry of the ground. And I've seen multiples of these. I'm no clipping through objects. I'm seeing like ugly ass, like pseudo repeating textures on soulless sculpted, or not even sculpted, procedurally generated mountains. It just looks bad. And it's, again, any other game I probably wouldn't notice it. I'd be like, yeah, it looks okay. But the older game was so good looking that to go from that to this is just, it's not good. It's not good. It needs to be fixed. And if you look at that clip from my stream that I posted earlier, which compared the old and the new, like literally side by side in the game, you see exactly what I'm talking about. It's like one is just so far and away superior than the other, and they're also so haphazardly thrown together that it needs major work. Major work. Not probably. Again, I say the crop vacuum kind of as a meme. I don't though. That is the single most important thing in the game. But really, a really important thing, other than the crop vacuum, which is important, is the world. You got to make the world look better. You've got to give the topography more interesting features. I understand you want to give us big open spaces for farming and shit. Why don't you give us a mech mode that lets us flatten terrain? I mean, why don't you let us do that? We can flatten terrain, and then when we remove it, it reverts to its old terrain. Now, I understand that could be a little bit difficult, but I mean, I don't know. There needs to be something done, because it's just all these flat spaces. It just looks bad. It just looks bad. At the very least, if you're going to still have these like big flat spaces, you got to put more in them. You got to put more bushes. You got to put more trees in more interesting places and ways and placements. Make the grass a little bit more dynamic. Not too much, because you do like the rolling fields of grass. But, there needs to be something done, because before we had this like super dynamic image, and now it's just flat and it's just soulless. It is absolutely the definition of soulless. Soul is human. Soul is passion and effort and energy and work, time spent creating something. That's soul. And then soulless is I press a button and the computer does it for me. That's soulless. And that seems to be what has been done with this map, at least in large part. I'm sure there's areas that look okay, but a lot of it does not. So we need to fix that. That's it. I've been rambling for like a half an hour. I've been repeating the same point 100 times. You get it. On balance, I'd say it's a pretty mid update. Mid to bad, honestly. While I like and have grown to appreciate the survival elements, while I like the house building, I like the new progression, the other stuff, it's just more important to me. The world looks like shit. That's super important. The crop vacuum, dude. It was the most fun. It was the most fun thing in your game, and you removed it. Why? So yeah, you might think like, oh, but the survival elements are good and all that, and like you're complaining about the map. Yeah, honestly, I'm looking at it 100% of the time I'm playing the game. I'm looking at the map. And again, I'm coming from, and maybe this is old player autism, but I'm coming from the original that looked incredible, really looked great. And I'm coming to this new one that is not that at all. So, I mean, I feel like for your own pride, for like what came before you should try to do better. At least a little bit, Anyway, that's it. And by the way, I'm not hating on this game. I've been playing this game for a year. Not a lot of people play this game. This is a pretty small game. I play it. I like it a lot. I put like 50 hours in it. Let me see how many hours I put in. I put like 40 hours into it over the last year, which is not a lot in a year, but it's a lot for a game with as little content as this had. And I really liked it. And I really wanted to see it succeed. And some of the things I've been hearing about Embracer Group over the last year have had me worried about this game. And I kind of worry that that's what's happened. I just hope that it can, if maybe it's not going to hit where it could have hit. Most things don't, to be frank. It could at least hit pretty good. It could hit a lot better than where it's hitting right now, because it ain't hitting right now. It's hitting a little bit, I'll admit. The longer I played it, the farther away I got from those first 2 hours of hell, the more fun I had with it. But there are these major issues that need work. And I just wanted to share it. Hope that maybe a developer or somebody would see it and maybe take some of my critiques into consideration. Because I want to see the game do well. And I want to see it in the best state it can be in. I understand the best state it can be in might not be in the best state we'd want it to be in, but I do think it can be in a better state, and I want it to be in a better state, and I hope to see it in a better state. So that's it for me. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed it, give it a like. Maybe even subscribe if you really enjoyed it. I'll probably be streaming more Lightyear in addition to what I usually do, TF2, Subnautica, that kind of thing. Anyway, thanks for watching. Until the next one. A few things I forgot to mention. I mentioned the mech customization menu and how it was an improvement, but there was one negative that I forgot. In the old game, you would assemble your mech with new like arms and legs and stuff by like physically generating the part and then picking it up with your pickaxe and shooting it at the mech chassis, like where it belongs, and it would snap onto the mech like a Lego. And that was cool, and it just felt fun to like snap your mech together like that. And they took it out for some reason. Now you just click a button in the menu and it automatically equips. So I just thought that was lame. That's soulless. I wish they would revert that change. Also, the testicle enemies. I'm not 100% sure if this is true, but I'm pretty sure it's true. If you are on foot and you are in range of a testicle's aggro, I'm pretty sure it's impossible to outrun it. So if you accidentally stumble into a testicle aggro range, you're basically just cooked. You're either going to die or at least take like 80% of your health in a hit. So that's bullshit, especially considering we have a pickaxe that lets us push things away, and it doesn't seem to work on these things. Maybe I just wasn't using it right, but it didn't work for me. That seems like an oversight. It's just stupid, so hopefully they fix that. And finally, the last little point is a good thing. The big planetary delivery gun that shoots your crops after you load them up to progress through the game actually physically moves and aims at the specific planet that you're delivering to, because they're all visible in the sky. And the gun that you build will actually point to that planet and then shoot the delivery at it. And that's cool. They didn't have to do that, but they did. And that's soul. And we need more of that in Lightyear. So I guess I'll end on a positive note there. So yeah, thanks for watching again, and until the next one.